yeah, you're joining 3D Politics right now with David Van, David Oldham, and David D'Ambroso. And we're going to talk about Steve Kunzweiler going after the Johns instead of the prostitutes.
Yeah, and I put the link up on 3D Politics Live on Facebook. Channel 6 covered the story really well. It was last Friday. They had busted, what do you know, a 6th grade school teacher from Ripley, outside of Stillwater, but she's part of this deal here. Now, I went over to their website, Ripley Schools. They washed
a prostitution tab.
In fact,
okay.
and
I totally misread that.
They totally
pizza. There's pizza.
They totally watched it. And in fact, one of the news agencies today showed the Google cache feed of it, where they listed her as a teacher. Now they're
internet
saying
is forever, guys.
Yes.
Archive.org, folks.
Yes.
Archive.org has it.
Google Wayback Machine too.
So
that's the Archive.org Wayback Machine.
But anyway, here's the thing I'm dealing with is the Kunzweiler statement. He said, referring to men, he says, if you are paying for sex and victimizing women, we're coming for you.
You're not allowed to have a wife or a girlfriend? What's up with that?
So, the crazy thing is, let's say it's not sex that's being sold. Let's say it's drugs. The kid down at the schoolyard who's having to deal with some drug pusher in the neighborhood selling in schools. Are we saying that that kid who's paying for drugs is victimizing that drug pusher?
Yes, logically.
This is the asinine argument. Now, tomorrow,
and I think they are, because they're probably ripping them off, not willing to pay what they should.
Yeah.
They
never pay on time, David.
Tomorrow night, Steve Kunzweiler is the speaker at Tulsa Republican Assembly.
Yes.
He has the whole hour.
Oh,
I want him to answer this. Now, they're making the narrative that these women are in sex trafficking slavery.
Hold on, Kunzweiler was previously an attorney. Most DAs aren't.
No, he's a DA.
Was he an attorney?
He's been
He doesn't answer that question.
Right.
So I'm just
going
to throw that out there.
But my problem is, now, trafficking and kidnapping are two separate things. And I can say it because I used to have...
Not if you order the condom.
Yeah, okay.
That's one item.
A couple years ago, the construction company owner, who's Hispanic, used to live next door to me, and his family's getting too big. He moves out and didn't sell the house. All of a sudden, I see a bunch of young guys there, and he says, "Yeah, these are a bunch of my workers. I'm having them stay here. I'm putting up." And ends up, I find out after their cover gets blown. These are all illegals from Mexico.
Way.
Yes.
No way. Don't believe it.
So, because what happened is the foreman, who's from Las Vegas, got into a blow-up with him and came over and told me, he says, by the way, coyotes are bringing another bunch, okay?
Oh.
So what will happen is the American business will order, this is what I want, the coyotes will bring them, and the businessman will have to pay usually about $5,000, depending on what it is.
There are many games parties here.
And then that business will provide shelter, clothing, and a job, and that worker will work off that debt.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So
the Chinese
and a random
social
security number generator.
Okay. It happens in all kinds of trades, whether it's sex trade, construction trade, anything like that. But what's going on in the Channel 6 story says that, they arrested a bunch of people, but the actual sex workers, they did not arrest. They provided counseling to them.
No, the question
How many drug pushers get counseling to them, and then instead you go arrest the guy who bought drugs?
People want things to be fair, and maybe that's admirable, maybe not. But I know things will never be fair. I mean, women are not prosecuted to the same extent for sexually abusing their students as men are. I mean, they get
that's cool as long as they don't have the same rights.
But here's the thing, David. What you're selling though is, to keep your analogy correct, is you can't give psychological counseling to the drug, and so that would be like the prostitute. The pusher is who they've arrested. they are actually being very consistent in the way they think.
If a service is illegal or if a product is illegal, whoever is providing that
I agree.
is bad. Okay.
But I'm just telling you, from their perspective, they're looking at the pushers of the girls.
So you really have to look at the tax documents to figure out if it's a self-proprietor.
First of all, now
If you're a sole contractor,
So that's really the matter.
Huge
Just look at their
assumption.
taxes, Kunzweiler.
Here's a huge assumption that Kunzweiler, and he may know something we don't, okay?
Right.
Of course he does.
Is that this is all part of a larger syndicate of workers being piped in just for this.
So,
Okay?
and were they the girls, the school girls, or were they trafficked from out of country?
Or were they just teachers?
What were they doing?
Yeah,
Other teachers.
I mean,
aren't
were they?
getting paid enough.
Certified?
Legislature.
What's up with all these government
I
officials
think
committing
there's
these
probably been a
crimes?
movie about
Okay.
that somewhere.
But this is
Lifetime.
But this
Risky
is hey
business.
Brenda, this is a problem, and I'm hoping Kunzweiler can elaborate on this because I have some legitimate questions, and I don't think that we should just assume that because I've watched and you drive down 11th Street in East Tulsa at any time. I mean, they're there.
There are a lot of cool ladies.
And listen, they're usually the ones out on the street are trying to get your attention rather than you pursuing them. And there's a lot of loser guys who they prey on.
Listen, if you're cold, they're cold.
Okay? So, I'm just saying,
Not if you open up with the line.
they're
You firm
pitching,
up the price.
they're pitching a narrative that the customer is the evil and the purveyor of the vice is not.
Government is typically anti-markets because
It's
government
anti-man,
doesn't
is what it is.
understand markets. They don't understand supply and demand. They don't understand negative externalities. They don't understand any of this stuff.
And listen,
It's all voodoo.
if you're some loser guy who has to pay for it, well, I mean, we all pay for it, don't we? I mean,
Some guys pay for it because they want to, David.
It's just the manner.
Not because they have to. It's a lifestyle choice, David.
It's just a preference.
I like what Charlie
Yeah,
Sheen
bigot.
is. Charlie Sheen is, you don't pay them for sex, you pay them to leave afterwards.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, that's Charlie Sheen's
That's terrible.
winning.
Tiger blood, guys.
Yeah, but anyway, so this is an issue, and I think Kunzweiler would do his office well to provide better context to this because this is
wouldn't
really
hold your breath, though.
Yeah, I
I mean, they
know.
kind of operate, in total
okay.
secrecy.
So here's another
in
narrative.
government.
Okay, we got to add this too because last spring, spring of last year, a judge came to me, James Caputo. They had set him up. Some women had been busted in a sting. Yeah, and he's single, so he'll go on a date once in a while, and a couple of women say, I want to help you with your campaign and stuff. Hey, can we meet for dinner? And so he meets them at a prominent restaurant and stuff. And this one woman, and another woman's with her, and then says, I gotta leave. And they're talking, and then later he finds out this woman, starts saying, you know what I do, don't you? And he's like, no, it's like,
Tell me.
yeah. And once he starts
do
to
you
figure,
feel like I do?
Are you a teacher?
as soon as he figures out she's in sex business here, he gets up, goes and pays for his, and leaves right away. I mean, he just, he could see this happening.
Two
And
ladies guilty
so
of
then,
bad
get this.
appearances.
Not long after, he gets a call down at the courthouse, the staff says, that evidently somebody from the AG's office, and he never told me who, it wasn't the Attorney General, Mike Hunter.
No, it was an assistant
AG.
aging.
And says, I want resignation now or we're going to file charges on you.
Of solicitation.
Solicitation.
Right.
And he's like, no, you got nothing on me. Because I know I haven't done anything, you know?
but it became public, and that was
enough.
That was political death.
Like what?
Not that
And in the court of public opinion, you're guilty until proven
not that
metaphysically
James
innocent.
Caputo was not worthy of being unseated, but that's a separate issue from the way they did it.
Yeah, and so what I'm saying is Caputo stared it down, and sure enough, there was nothing to it. No charges ever filed. And yes,
It was purely to steer the
was
election.
2 weeks before the election, and he lost.
Just a coincidence in the time.
And so here's what I'm saying. If you're a guy out there who's being screwed over, and I don't mean literally screwed over, but
by a teacher or non-teacher,
and you know things right, you're needing an attorney. I'm thinking James Caputo ought to be
consensually or non-consensually.
because
Okay.
I think Caputo would be motivated to take this on.
I would hope so. The problem, the problem with, well, anyway, I'm gonna.
Well, the reason I'm saying this,
David.
now I don't know how that setup where they smeared Caputo.
Yeah.
I don't know how much Kunzweiler was directly involved in that, but I do know.
I bet if you ask him, he'll tell you.
Well, actually, all DAs, and Steve Kunzweiler is our Tulsa County DA,
Right.
and all DAs actually technically work for the Attorney General.
Now, when this infamous
Or not technically, they do.
When this infamous statement was made Friday night, and I watched the video, they didn't quote him out of context. He said it, and you know who's standing right behind Kunzweiler? Mike Hunter.
You're
the
back to
AG.
his original statement from the Post.
Yes.
When he said, what did
He
say?
says, yes, if you're paying for sex and victimizing women, we're coming after you. And I'm just wondering how much.
Is he allowed to
What
selectively
Hunter,
enforce
I'm
the
just
law?
asking how much what Hunter's done and what Kunzweiler's continuing to do are connected. Because I think it was a Kunzweiler-involved sting that was going after
Well,
Caputo.
let's talk about this. I mean, are you allowed to selectively enforce the law and say, there's some laws I really don't like, or I know that both people are violating, both parties are, but I just want to prosecute one party.
He
Is
can
that
definitely
legal?
selectively move a case forward. He doesn't get to selectively
Is that
enforce the
constitutional?
law.
I don't really,
No, actually,
He selects
it's
the
I don't really
case.
understand how that works.
Actually, it's unconstitutional given given the
surprising.
oath of office here in Oklahoma. The oath of office has 4 basic pillars. The first is that you support, obey, and defend the U.S. Constitution. The second is the Oklahoma Constitution. The third is that you do your job to the best of your ability. And that would go right to what you're talking about, where if you're choosing not to, you are choosing to not do your job. And then fourth is that you not take any bribes, that you not do or not do anything because of a remuneration.
So it sounds like you just grand jury these guys for violating their oath.
Yeah.
Yes, that's my point. I've been
No, I just came up with that idea right now, independently. First person ever.
Yes, that's good.
He's learning. He's getting it. That's right. It's your idea.
No, it's great.
Most
because I
perfect.
want people to get the idea, because we've been talking about it. Yes,
Okay.
it's true.
What does the 14th Amendment say about equal protection?
Anchor babies and abortion.
David, I don't have the example on it.
Well, what do you
Well, I
reference?
believe that the 14th Amendment encapsulates the idea of equal protection under the law.
Well, that's inherent in everything, but it
Right.
goes out and says that we are all to be treated equally by the law, and that we are to be treated in the states equally under the Bill of Rights.
So Title IX goes both ways, right?
Well, Title IX is a violation of your rights because it steals your money to implement it.
Yeah.
So it violates your Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights in order to implement it in the first place.
Yeah.
So that's
Well, I got a couple of comments on this story. One of them is
No
about.
way.
Well, one of them is something we can fix, and I think one of them is just going to be here. The idea that there is the whole concept of Kunzweiler's attitude about prostitutes and Johns is the idea that there's no other way for a desperate woman to survive other than prostitution. It's a presumptive, stereotypical, sexist view of females. It also reinforces a false dilemma that encourages the sex trade. It teaches women, it's the only thing you can do. It ties in to some other stuff, but unfortunately, the bigger problem I see that's fixable is the poor ability to write. He's a lawyer. The DA is, unfortunately, we're forced to assume his exact meaning. He's poorly composed his words. According to his quoted statement, one would be required to pay for sex with some entity and then also victimize a woman before he's coming after you. Had the DA used the article or instead of the word and, he could come after you either way. As stated, pay for sex, no problem. Victimize women, no problem. Just don't do both. You can't order the combo.
Yep.